It started like any other job interview, a bright room, polite smiles, and promises of growth. I was eager, full of hope, imagining a place where my work mattered and my voice was heard. But from the very first day stepping into that office, I felt a chill, not from the air conditioning, but from the atmosphere itself. The smiles felt forced, the greetings curt, and beneath the surface, an unspoken tension hung heavy. My desk was tucked away in a corner, almost like an afterthought. The cubicle walls were thin, and I could hear whispers, half-laughed jokes, and the occasional sharp bark of a manager's voice cutting through the hum. I tried to focus on my tasks, but the undercurrent of fear was impossible to ignore. Colleagues exchanged glances whenever someone made a mistake, and the weight of judgment was palpable. At first, I thought I was just imagining things. New environments can be intimidating, right? But soon, it became clear this place wasn't just stressful, it was toxic. The manager, Mr. H, had a way of making people feel small. His critiques were never constructive, they were weaponized. A missed deadline wasn't an opportunity to improve, but a reason to publicly humiliate. I remember the first time he called me out during a team meeting. My heart pounded as he singled me out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. The room went silent, all eyes fixed on me. I stammered, trying to explain, but his cold dismissiveness cut through any defense. The shame was suffocating, and the silence afterward was deafening. The culture was one of constant surveillance. Every email, every word spoken near his desk seemed to be recorded in an invisible ledger. People stopped sharing ideas, stopped asking questions. Creativity died under the weight of fear. I caught myself biting my tongue, second-guessing my every move, just to avoid becoming the next target. One particular day, I witnessed something that shook me deeply. A colleague, Sarah, who had always been vibrant and confident, cracked under pressure. After a minor error, Mr. H berated her so harshly she burst into tears at her desk. No one comforted her. Instead, others quickly turned away, afraid to share her fate. That moment was a silent warning to us all. The toxic culture wasn't just in the manager's behavior. Gossip and backstabbing ran rampant. People jockeyed for favor, whispering lies, and spreading rumors to protect themselves or climb the ladder. Trust became a fragile illusion. Friendships dissolved into alliances, and the office became a battlefield where vulnerability was weakness. I tried to reach out to HR once, hoping for support or change, but their response was cold and dismissive. "We're aware of some tensions," they said, "but nothing actionable has been reported." It felt like a cruel joke. How could anyone report fear when doing so meant risking everything? The message was clear: keep quiet or be disposable. Over time, the constant stress began to take a toll on my health. Sleepless nights, headaches, and a knot of anxiety in my stomach became my new normal. I dreaded Mondays and counted down the hours until I could escape the oppressive walls. But even outside the office, the fear followed me like a shadow. There were moments of unexpected kindness, those small acts that reminded me I wasn't alone. A quiet smile from a coworker in the hallway, a whispered word of encouragement during a hectic day. These brief connections were lifelines, flickers of humanity amidst the cold machinery of fear. One night after a particularly brutal day, I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, tears streaming down my face. I felt trapped, like a prisoner in a place that crushed spirits and stole dreams. The thought of quitting terrified me. I feared the unknown as much as the known nightmare, but staying felt like slowly dying. As weeks turned into months, the toxicity escalated. New policies appeared overnight, designed to monitor and control rather than support. Surveillance cameras, mandatory check-ins, and feedback sessions that felt more like interrogations. The message was unmistakable: obedience above all else. I began to notice how some colleagues changed under pressure. The once compassionate became cold and distant, hardened by the environment. Some embraced the toxicity, using it as a weapon to climb higher, sacrificing their integrity for survival. The office was a cage, but some had learned to thrive behind bars. One afternoon, during a team lunch, a whispered conversation caught my attention. Two coworkers discussed a recent dismissal. A talented member pushed out for questioning the status quo. The fear in their voices was tangible, and the realization hit me: no one was safe, no matter how good or loyal. Despite everything, I tried to hold on to my sense of self. I journaled secretly, scribbling down moments of hope and despair. Writing became my escape, a way to process the chaos and remind myself that this was not who I was meant to be. But even in those pages, the shadows of the workplace loomed large. There was an unspoken rule: show no weakness. Crying at your desk was a betrayal. Admitting stress was a failure. I watched as even the strongest colleagues broke down in private, their smiles masks worn to survive. The cost was immense, but vulnerability was a luxury no one could afford. One day I found an anonymous note slipped under my door. It read, "You're not alone, keep your head up." The handwriting was shaky but determined. It was a small beacon of solidarity in a sea of isolation. I folded the note carefully and tucked it away, a secret reminder that courage existed even here. Then came the unexpected, a company-wide restructuring. Rumors swirled about layoffs and new leadership. The tension reached a fever pitch. Some colleagues clung to hope for change, others prepared for the worst. The uncertainty made the air even heavier, and anxiety became a constant companion. In the final weeks before the changes took effect, the atmosphere shifted subtly. The manager's grip seemed to loosen just a bit, maybe distracted by the upheaval. Quiet conversations returned, and for a brief moment, the office felt less like a prison and more like a community. But the scars remained beneath the surface. The day the new leadership arrived, everything felt surreal. A fresh face with promises of transparency and respect, urging us to speak up and rebuild trust. Skepticism was thick. How could anyone fix a culture so deeply broken? But for the first time in years, a fragile hope sparked within me. That night I lay awake, heart pounding with a mix of fear and anticipation. The road ahead was uncertain, and the wounds of the past still ached. But maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something different, a chance to reclaim dignity and heal from the shadows that had haunted us for so long. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, or if the promise of change would last. But as I closed my eyes, I held on to one truth: no culture of fear can extinguish the human spirit forever. Somewhere beneath the layers of pain, resilience waits to rise. And so my story continues, tangled in the complexities of a workplace where fear once ruled, but where hope now whispers its fragile song. I share this not as an end, but as a beginning, a call to recognize the invisible battles many fight daily, and the courage it takes to survive, and maybe someday thrive. The next morning, stepping back into the office, the air felt different. People exchanged cautious smiles, and for once, the silence was not heavy but tentative. I realized that even in the darkest places, change can start with a single step, a single act of bravery. I wasn't sure where this path would lead, but I was ready to walk it. As I settled into my chair, I glanced around the room, some faces weary, others curious, all carrying their own stories of struggle. The culture of fear hadn't vanished overnight, but cracks were forming in its foundation. And sometimes, that's all it takes for light to break through. I caught the eye of a colleague across the room, and for the first time in a long time, I saw a flicker of something new: determination. We nodded quietly, a silent pact that we were in this together. The journey ahead was uncertain, but together, maybe we could rewrite the story of this place. In the weeks that followed, small changes began to ripple through the office. Open discussions replaced whispered fears. Mistakes were met with guidance, not punishment. Slowly, the walls of silence started to crumble, revealing the possibility of a healthier, more supportive environment. Yet the shadows of the past lingered. Some still clung to old habits, resistant to change. The scars of years didn't heal quickly, and the culture of fear had left its mark. But the difference now was that those scars were visible, acknowledged, and no longer hidden beneath forced smiles. I found myself stepping into a new role, not just as a worker, but as an advocate for change. It was daunting to challenge the remnants of toxicity, but the alternative was unacceptable. Every conversation felt like a small battle, but also a step forward. The fight for dignity was ongoing, but it was no longer fought alone. One afternoon, a former colleague reached out, sharing their own story of struggle and survival. Their words resonated deeply, reminding me that this was not just my journey, but a shared experience for many trapped in similar workplaces. Our stories intertwined, forming a tapestry of resilience and hope. I began to document these experiences, hoping to shed light on the hidden realities of toxic workplaces. The goal wasn't to blame, but to understand and inspire change. The culture of fear thrives in silence, but when voices rise together, it begins to lose power. Sometimes I still feel the old fear creeping in, the urge to hide, to shrink away from confrontation. But then I remember the moments of courage and connection that carried me through. Fear may be powerful, but it isn't invincible, and neither am I. Looking back, I realize how deeply the toxic culture affected not just my work, but my sense of self. It chipped away at confidence, stole joy, and rewrote my expectations. But it also taught me the value of standing up, of seeking allies, and of refusing to accept fear as a norm. The story is far from over. The culture of fear may still cast long shadows, but the light of change is growing. And as long as we keep telling our stories, supporting each other, and demanding better, there's hope for workplaces where respect and kindness are the true currencies. So here I am, sharing this chapter of my life, hoping it resonates with anyone who's ever felt trapped or silenced. You're not alone. And together, we can begin to dismantle the structures that thrive on fear and build something stronger, kinder, and more human. The journey is messy and uncertain, full of setbacks and small victories. But every step forward is a reclaiming of power and dignity. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most important story of all.